You know that feeling when you decide you're going to master something like completely new?
Oh, yeah. Like rolling out a complex new software system for your whole team at work.
Right. Or, adopting some rigid new productivity framework.
Or even something personal, like finally learning how to bake that perfect artisan sourdough bread.
Exactly. You go all in, you buy the books, you watch hours of tutorials on YouTube.
Memorize all the terminology.
Yeah, you become an armchair expert, basically, but then you step up to actually do the thing.
Yeah,
And
completely freeze.
yes, it's like the gap between knowing everything about a system and actually taking that very first step to implement it is just, it's the size of the Grand Canyon.
It really is a universal human frustration. And, I mean, it's fascinating from a psychological standpoint. We're incredibly adept at absorbing information. Our brains just love collecting data.
Oh, for sure.
But translating that data into physical, real-world action, that requires an entirely different cognitive process. We hit a wall, and almost immediately, we blame ourselves.
Right, we think, oh, I must not have paid enough attention.
Exactly. Or, I need to read one more book before I'm really ready.
Well, okay, let's unpack this. What if the problem isn't you? What if the problem is the very way we're trying to spread information in the first place?
That's a great question.
And that is the exact mission of today's deep dive. We are unpacking this fascinating 15-year case study on how information actually translates into action.
Yeah, the document we're looking at is titled The Relational Engine, a 15-year journey from movement information to movement implementation.
Right, by James Rebavarapu. He basically spent a decade and a half studying why some massive ideas spread like wildfire, while others just kind of, quietly die in a conference room.
To really grasp the gravity of what he discovered, we need to understand his laboratory. He operates in a space known as disciple-making movements, or DMM.
DMR, right.
Yeah. Now, regardless of your background, the mechanics of DMM are incredibly relevant if you care about, organizational behavior. The goal of DMM is essentially a decentralized exponential growth model.
Okay, decentralized, meaning what exactly?
It's a framework where individuals learn a set of principles, apply them, and then rapidly pass them on to others.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, creating multiple self-sustaining generations of growth.
So it's kind of the ultimate test case for scaling an idea.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the why behind this model is what drives the whole 15-year journey. The author points out that the total addressable market they're trying to reach, what they call the harvest, is just massive.
Right. Way too big for a small group of highly trained professionals.
Exactly, or executives. For a movement like this to actually take root and spread globally, it cannot rely on massive corporate budgets or highly paid staff.
Or building huge physical buildings.
Right. It has to be entirely decentralized. It has to be able to replicate itself in living rooms and coffee shops.
And this is exactly why you, listening right now, should care about this. Whether you're leading a corporate startup or organizing a grassroots community initiative or just trying to build a new habit, this 15-year journey is a goldmine.
It really is. It reveals the exact mechanics of why top-down training almost always fails.
Yes. And how real, sustainable movements actually breathe. Reading through this timeline, I couldn't shake this specific analogy.
What's that?
It's like buying the ultimate $1,000 next-level masterclass on advanced woodworking,
Okay, I like where this is going.
complete with blueprints for a mahogany dining table. But you do this before you even know how to properly swing a basic hammer.
That is perfect. You have this massive vision, but zero practical foundation.
Right.
And that woodworking analogy perfectly encapsulates where the author started. Which brings us to the very beginning of this journey, a period he identified as the information-heavy phase.
The era of the high-level summit.
Exactly.
So let's look at how they initially tried to launch this movement. They targeted organization and network leaders, the top brass, right?
Yep, the executives.
They would rent out venues and host these massive 2- or 3-day intensive training events. And from the sounds of it, they just backed up the dump truck of information.
Oh, they totally did. They were handing over these incredibly complex next-level frameworks. They were teaching highly advanced organizational concepts.
Like what were they actually teaching at these summits?
Well, things like the Luke 10 sending model, which in secular terms is essentially an ancient framework for lean, agile deployment.
Lean deployment. Okay.
It's about sending people out in pairs with minimal resources to find receptive local hubs. They taught specific networking strategies, too, like identifying a person of peace.
A person of peace, meaning like A local champion.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Finding that crucial early adopter or internal champion within a new community who can open doors for you.
Got it.
They covered team formation, high-level tracking of generational growth. I mean, it was an absolute avalanche of strategic theory.
But wait, getting all your highly motivated leaders in a room, whiteboarding a massive vision, giving them the exact blueprint, I mean, that is standard operating procedure for almost every major company on Earth.
It is.
Shouldn't that have just launched 1,000 ships?
Well, what's fascinating here is the immediate contradiction that emerged from the data. On one hand, these summits were incredible. The author admits they were genuinely a blast.
I mean, sure, it's fun to get in a room with other smart leaders and talk high-level strategy.
Exactly. Great for networking. But almost immediately, this approach created a massive organizational bottleneck.
Okay, I have to challenge that. If they're giving leaders the exact manual for how the movement works, why on earth is that creating a bottleneck?
Because of the psychological makeup of the people in the room, the data show that the room was full of thinkers and designers, but very few actual practitioners.
Oh, thinkers, not doers.
Right? Think about it. When you put a bunch of leaders in a room and give them a new framework, what's their first instinct? It isn't to go out and blindly follow the instructions,
Well, it's to tweak it.
to optimize it. They all took these tools and immediately started putting their own unique spin on them. They were theorizing about the work rather than doing the work.
So instead of baking the burger, the franchise owners were rewriting the recipe book.
That's exactly it. And furthermore, because there was no ongoing one-on-one coaching after the summit ended, implementation just stalled out completely.
Let me guess, they went back to their home bases and got swallowed up by their busy schedules.
Yep. The new initiatives died on the vine. The training didn't reproduce the movement. It just reproduced the training.
Wow. So people walked away feeling like they needed to secure a huge budget to host their own 3-day summit.
Exactly. It became this expensive, self-licking ice cream cone where the only thing being modeled was how to hold meetings about the movement.
That is such a dangerous, common trap. You mistake talking about the work for actually doing the work.
Oh, absolutely.
So the team looks at the data. They realize these high-level summits are too heavy, too theoretical, and frankly, too expensive.
Right.
And the natural reaction when theory isn't working is to swing the pendulum entirely the other way. You pivot to practical skills.
Which ushers in phase 2 of their journey, the online intensive.
Okay, so how is this different?
This was their direct attempt to solve the thinker problem. They moved into what they called a skill-based phase. Instead of a massive weekend data dump for top-tier executives, they shifted their audience to the middle managers.
The catalysts and hub-level team leaders.
Right. And structurally, they instituted a multi-week commitment. Weekly online sessions utilizing books, videos, and practical tools to tackle team formation. They specifically focused on helping people unlearn their old, ineffective ways of operating.
Now, on paper, this sounds like the perfect fix. This sounds exactly like a modern corporate learning management system.
It really does.
You're breaking the massive data dump down into digestible chunks. It's multi-week, so there's time to actually absorb it. It's entirely skill-based.
Yeah.
It's like going from a chaotic weekend seminar to a proper, structured weekly boot camp. So why didn't this work perfectly?
Because they ran into a completely different psychological wall.
Really? What was it?
The text highlights a fatal flaw here, what the author calls the massive gap between things learned and things lived out. The trainers realized that, despite spreading it out over weeks, they were still just filling people's heads with information and tools way, way ahead of any actual implementation.
Oh, I see. They were still armchairing it. They were just doing it over a longer period of time.
Yes. In this multi-week model, an unspoken underlying expectation developed. Participants felt they had to master all the various components of the movement before they were allowed to implement anything.
Oh, man.
They felt they needed to be absolute experts in every theory, every cultural nuance, every engagement strategy before they could even start something as basic as a small discovery Bible study.
The cognitive load was still just overwhelming.
Exactly.
It's the trap of perfect preparation. We use knowledge gathering as a defense mechanism against the vulnerability of actually trying something and failing.
That's the spot on.
You convince yourself you cannot start until you are perfectly prepared. But mechanically, you can never be perfectly prepared without starting.
Right, it's a classic analysis paralysis. So, seeing this massive, persistent gap between learning and living, the team decides to take drastic measures.
Drastic how?
They dramatically simplify everything. They strip away the complex layers, they ditch the multi-week intensives, and they enter phase 3, the the seed phase.
And this is where the target audience shifts yet again. They move away from the leaders, they move away from the middle managers, and they decide to target ordinary, everyday people.
Exactly.
And instead of a 3-day summit or a multi-week boot camp, they boil the entire training down to just one single day.
Just one day. And the curriculum was stripped down to the absolute bare metal. They focused strictly on forming small, self-guided learning groups built around 4 essential mechanical keys.
Let's list those keys out.
It was ordinary people, discovery, obedience, and multiplication.
Let's actually define those because they're brilliant in their simplicity. Ordinary people means it has to be decentralized, right? Like anyone can do it, no experts required.
Abstract.
Discovery means self-guided learning. So no one is standing at the front of the room lecturing you.
Right.
Obedience, which is a heavy word, but in this context, it just means immediate application, committing to act on whatever truth you just discovered.
Yep, applying it right away.
And multiplication means immediately sharing what you learned with someone else.
Yeah, and if we look closely at how those 4 keys interact, it creates a very specific behavioral loop.
A loop?
Yeah, you discover an insight, you apply it to your life, and you teach it to a peer. That loop is designed to bypass the theorizing phase completely.
That makes total sense.
And initially, it seemed drastically easier for people to digest. The instruction was simple. Go do this in your homes and your existing communities.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. They have stripped away the massive budgets. They got rid of the high-level theory. They scrapped the weekly homework assignments. They literally just gave them a simple 4-step behavioral loop and told them to start in their living rooms. This has to be the silver bullet, right?
You'd think so.
But the timeline shows they hit yet another major hurdle. People still got stuck. They would go home, they would start a few of these small groups, and then the momentum would just completely flatline.
It did.
What on earth is the roadblock now?
Well, this raises a critical question about human psychology and the expectations we place on beginners. The author discovered that the roadblock wasn't the tools themselves. It was the focus of these basic trainings.
The focus, okay.
The ultimate goal being emphasized was heavily weighted toward outreach.
Outreach.
Yeah. They were telling these ordinary people to go out and find a person of peace in totally unreached, unfamiliar segments of their wider community.
Wait, so they gave them a 1-day training and then essentially asked them to go cold call strangers?
That is exactly what it was.
Wow.
There's a frontier approach. And what the data revealed is that this expectation was a massive, terrifying leap from where these everyday folks actually were in their daily lives.
Oh, I mean, yeah. Think about how much human beings naturally fear rejection.
Exactly. Asking someone to walk up to a stranger and initiate a deep, vulnerable conversation, that is an incredibly high psychological barrier.
Yeah, that's huge.
It wasn't that they lacked information. They had the basics. What they fundamentally lacked was a partner.
A partner.
Yeah. They were standing on the edge of the canyon with a map in their hands, but no one was there to walk across the bridge with them.
Oh, wow. Which brings us to the ultimate breakthrough of this entire 15-year study. The failure of that frontier approach connects directly to phase 4.
The current working reality.
Right, which the author calls the relational engine.
This is the definitive paradigm shift. They moved entirely from training events to modeling and coaching.
So it's the shift from telling people what to do to physically showing them how to do it.
Exactly. It's showing, not telling.
Let's break down the specific tactics of this relational engine because this is where the rubber meets the road for anyone trying to implement a new system.
Let's do it.
First, they threw out the massive curriculums.
Right. Instead of starting with a huge, sweeping study series, like trying to teach someone the entire history of computing before letting them use a spreadsheet, they use a simple series.
Just 4 short, manageable stories.
Exactly. They found that shrinking the material isn't about watering down the message. It is about engineering early wins.
Building the habit and the confidence of actually finishing something you start.
That sense of completion is vital for generating momentum. But, momentum can't happen in a vacuum. So the second tactic they deployed was the immediate use of technology for real-time accountability.
Right, specifically using WhatsApp groups and one-on-one coaching calls.
Yeah, the moment someone starts a group, they are connected via text. It's instantaneous feedback to celebrate progress.
And I think it's crucial to point out that this isn't just like endless hand-holding for everyone, right? It is a highly targeted strategy.
What do you mean?
They use this communication to figure out who the actual practitioners are. They're separating the doers from the thinkers, so they can focus their coaching energy specifically on the people who are taking action.
Yes, That is such a good point. And that leads to the third and perhaps most structurally important tactic of the relational engine, the oikos bridge.
The Oikos Bridge.
Yeah, oikos is a Greek word that essentially means household or personal network.
Okay.
So rather than pushing beginners to immediately step out into the terrifying frontier and cold call strangers, they focus entirely on the homogeneous bridges that are already established.
That means starting with the people you already know, your warm leads.
Exactly. Friends, family, coworkers.
That is so practical. I'm actually going to abandon my woodworking analogy from earlier because a gym analogy works so much better to explain the mechanics here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Think about it. The first three phases, the summits, the intensives, the one-day seeds, that was like someone handing you an incredibly complex color-coded workout diagram, patting you on the back and wishing you luck. You walk into the gym, you look at the equipment, you feel completely intimidated, and you just go home.
Yeah, you freeze.
But the relational engine is like having a personal trainer actually standing next to you at the squat rack. They are physically lifting the weights with you, spotting you, correcting your form in real time until your body builds the actual muscle memory to do it alone.
That gym analogy perfectly explains why the oikos bridge is the secret sauce. When you're building a new skill building, that muscle memory, you need a profoundly safe environment
Yeah, you need a place where it's okay to fail.
to stumble through the script and to eventually see early success. By starting with family and friends, practitioners get to witness transformational stories firsthand with people they trust.
They build their confidence in a low-stakes environment.
Exactly. Only after they've experienced the system working internally are they psychologically resilient enough to make that intimidating jump out into the wider community.
You have to experience it working for yourself before you can ever sell it to a stranger. It makes total logical sense.
It really does.
But I am going to push back here because I know what you're thinking as you listen to this.
What's the pushback?
If you're a startup founder, a corporate executive, or anyone dealing with quarterly earnings and limited runway, your internal alarm bells are probably screaming right now.
Because of the time commitment.
Exactly. This relational engine, the one-on-one coaching, the WhatsApp groups, the slow building of habits with family first, that sounds incredibly slow. It sounds deeply unscalable.
Right.
In a world obsessed with hypergrowth, isn't this kind of intense manual hand-holding a massive step backwards?
That is the exact skepticism the author had to confront. And he dissects this scaling myth brilliantly in the text.
How so?
Well, he explicitly acknowledges that leaders naturally shy away from this intensive partnership because it feels wildly inefficient.
Yeah.
Our designer brains desperately want to pull away from the messy, slow human element so we can achieve frictionless scale.
Because we're terrified of becoming the bottleneck in our own organization. Like, if I have to personally coach every single new hire or team leader step by step, I can only reach maybe 10 people a year, not 10,000.
But the data from this 15-year study argues that this fear is entirely misplaced.
Really?
Yeah. Frictionless scale is a myth when it comes to human behavior. This intensive, slow, upfront partnership is exactly what builds independent, resilient DNA into the movement. You aren't building dependency by coaching someone closely. You are ensuring that the habits and practices are mechanically sound enough to actually survive on their own once you step away.
You have to go slow to go fast.
Exactly.
Great.
It is a bit slower up front. It requires heavy lifting, but it is vastly more cost-effective than renting out conference centers. And critically, the retention and actual execution rates are infinitely higher.
Because it actually works.
It actually works, and here's the genius part. They don't throw away the high-level frameworks from phase one.
Oh, they don't?
No, those complex organizational tools are still valuable, but they hold them back.
Timing is everything.
Right. Once these everyday practitioners start seeing actual sustained growth beyond their immediate networks, once the engine is genuinely running on its own, then they reintroduce those high-level components to help them manage and sustain the scale.
Wow.
But they only do it after the implementation muscle memory is secure.
So what does this all mean for you today? It's an incredible shift in perspective. You cannot just tell people about a new system or a new movement. You must be an active participant in the implementation.
That is the core takeaway.
It doesn't matter if you're trying to roll out a complicated new project management software at your firm, or if you're trying to mobilize your neighborhood for a local cause. The gap between information and implementation is real, and it is deep.
So deep.
And according to a decade and a half of hard data, that gap can only be bridged by a relational engine. You have to stop handing out instruction manuals and start walking alongside people.
It leaves us with a rather profound paradox to consider, especially as we look toward the future. Well, we live in an era that completely worships the idea of algorithmic efficiency.
Oh, absolutely. Going viral instant scale.
We're constantly trying to automate onboarding, using AI and software to remove the human element so we can scale faster and cheaper. But this 15-year journey suggests that our very obsession with removing the friction of human interaction might be the exact reason our biggest, most innovative ideas failed to take root.
Oh, wow.
What if, in our rush to automate the spread of knowledge, we are destroying the very relational engines required to turn that knowledge into action?
That is a deeply challenging thought to walk away with. What if the most revolutionary thing you can do to change your organization today isn't designing a slicker automated masterclass, but simply pulling up a chair and walking alongside one single person as they take their very first step?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We really encourage you to look at your own life, your own projects, and your own teams, and ask yourself, who around you might need a little less information and a little more relational accompaniment today? Catch you next time.